Hello, welcome to this video. I don't know if you've been here before. My name is Mrs. Bertimus and I'm a painter and I draw and collage. I have a little online shop and do bits and bobs, and I keep a studio vlog here. So welcome if you've not been here before. But I've never, well, I don't think I ever have. I don't think I've ever done a kind of top tips video before. But a few weeks ago, I asked if you had any kind of requests, anything you'd like me to talk about, and one of them was about colour mixing. And so I thought I would just show you. I mean, I use just a very simple way of creating a unified palette, and I thought it might be useful to just show you how I do it. I think the reason why I've avoided top tips videos before, to be honest, is I'm always worried about setting rules. Rules worry me. In the past, I think we subconsciously collect rules in our head. And one of the rules that I religiously stuck to until I was way into my 30s was never to use black. And I think maybe once, probably when I was about 11 or something, one of my art teachers would have said, oh, you mustn't use black. I don't know, I managed before. Personally speaking, black is one of the paints that I use an awful lot. And the nice thing, I guess, is that whenever I do use black, either straight from the tube or in a colour mix, I feel like a rebel. Yeah, I'm so rock and roll. Every time I crack open that pot of black paint, I'm like, yeah. Anyway, that A, shows you how sad I am. B, I think it just shows you that we place rules in our head maybe without even thinking. So I do not want to be placing any rules in your head, but these are just the things that I like to use and I like to do. If they're helpful to you, that's fantastic. But please, please don't ever think that's the way you've got to do them. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I want to give you, I've not counted now. You can see I'm not that organised. It's going to be roughly 3 or 4 top tips on creating a unified palette. The first thing we're going to look at is most of the colours that I use, not always, but most of the time, colours that I mix are desaturated. So that means if I chose a yellow, I would choose its complementary purple, and I might add the tiniest touch, or, you know, I might add a decent amount, but even adding the tiniest touch just knocks off that zing of the yellow. So everything becomes a little bit quieter, a little bit more muted. I kind of feel as well a little bit more mysterious. So yeah, desaturate. So desaturation, this is probably the only bit of colour theory that I use. Colour theory is incredibly interesting, but it does actually blow my brain a little bit. So if you're a colour theory expert, please switch off now, because I use the simplest way of creating my palette. So all it is a desaturated colour is a colour, it has a reduced amount of its original hue, which is its actual colour, by adding an amount of its complementary. Now, if you're not sure what a complementary colour is, very, very simply, we have the colour wheel, and a colour's complementary is its opposite colour on the colour wheel. And I use the 3 main complementary colour pairs, which are blue and orange, purple and yellow, and red and green. I used to struggle remembering those, and I'm going to share the way that I've taught my students in the past and the way that I've remembered them. Don't know if it's going to be helpful or if it's a pile of nonsense. It's helped me. Blue and orange, I always remember with BO. So if I ever asked a student what the complementary colour of blue was and they didn't quite remember, I would go, and then go, oh yeah, BO, blue and orange. I told you this is really technical. BO, blue and orange. Purple and yellow, I always think, oh, please yourself, purple and yellow. And red and green is my favourite food. It's pizza boxes, because you always have like the Italian colours on pizza boxes. So don't know if that's any help. It's BO, please yourself, pizza box. Don't know if that's going to help. Please don't be mean in the comments if you just think that's a pile of rubbish. Anyway, so I often use the complementary colour pairs, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. I'm going to show you some of my favourite colour mixes. I'll also show you some of the paintings that illustrate my use of unified palettes, and you'll be able to see that most of the colours have been desaturated. I'll just put a picture of one here, but I'll show you some more examples during the film. Now, I'm very wary that I've done a big talky talk and you just want to see the colour mixes. So if you don't want to hear the story about Miss Orange and Mr. Blue, oh, honestly, this is probably why I don't do a top tips video. Yeah, so in the past, when I've talked about how you desaturate colours, when I would teach my students, I think as a teacher, I didn't actually ever stand at the board and teach, but I would much prefer to tell a story. I feel sorry for my students. I'm sorry if you're watching, by the way, in the past. And I would talk about desaturation with Miss Orange and Mr. Blue. So if you just want to get straight onto the colour mixes, fast forward. If I've been talking too long, please don't switch off. Just fast forward and look at the colour mixes. I completely won't be insulted. Anyway, if you've stuck around, lovely. Thanks a lot. Let's have a drink. Let's have a brew. Custard cream. Are you ready for story time? Right. Okay. Would you like to hear the story about how colours are desaturated? And it is the sad romantic tale of Miss Orange and Mr. Blue. Okay. So one fateful evening, Miss Orange went down the local disco, and she was strutting away. She was dancing. Oh, she looked beautiful. Her favourite tune had come on. She was glowing. Mr. Blue was stood by the bar, little half a shandy, looked over and thought, wow, look at her. Wow, she is beautiful. He sidled over and they started dancing together. Now, this is the interesting thing about complementary colours. If you place two complementary colours next to each other, they actually make each other look brighter. So if you wanted to use the blue straight out of the tube, the orange straight out of the tube, and you placed either, you know, two shapes or two areas of colour on your painting next to each other, and they were complementary colours, they would glow and they literally complement each other. So that night they started dancing and the sparks were flying. The blue looked bluer. Mr. Blue had never looked so blue and beautiful in its whole life. Miss Orange was glowing. She looked like she was on fire. They made an incredible couple. A couple of years down the line, this relationship, they were absolutely, completely and utterly infatuated with each other. They literally brought out the best in each other. So Mr. Blue popped the question. Yes, of course, she said. Of course I will marry you. I have never been so orange and beautiful and happy in my whole orangey life. Fast forward 6 months after they'd got married. Mrs. Blorange, she was washing Mr. Blue's dirty socks, and her orange socks and undies were all mixed in with the water, and as she scrubbed Mr. Blue's stinky socks, all the colours were becoming greyer and greyer. Obviously, as we know, if you start to mix two complementary colours together, they desaturate. They become a duller version of that colour. And she looked at the laundry and thought, what have I done? There is the cautionary tale of Mrs. Blorange. I hope you enjoyed that. You're probably like, what? But basically, yeah, that's basically the amount of colour theory that I use in my colour mixing. Let's get on to the good bit now. Let's get on to the actual paint, and I'll show you what I mean. If you're still here, thank you so much. You deserve a second custard cream. So I'm going to show you some mixes using 3 colour pairs that I often use, but please don't think they're the only colours that I use or that you can use. If you try different blues, oranges, you know, you'll just get so many different types of colour mixes, and you can start and compare with the other mixes that you've used, and it's, well, it's mind-blowing, but it's definitely something to explore. But I'm just going to pick these 6 just to show you in this short video. So I've got cadmium red, chromium oxide green, deep violet, bismuth yellow, Prussian blue, and Pyrrole orange. Again, you'll see there's a mix of different brands. It's whatever you prefer to use. These are just ones that I've collected over the years. So I'm going to start with the cadmium red and the chromium oxide green. Now, what you can do is, if you add a tiny touch of the complementary, you'll just knock back the kind of zinginess, the brightness of that colour, because you are adding the opposite colour. So I'm just adding that touch of green in there. Okay, you can see that the red has been knocked back. I'll do the same for the green. Okay, if we add a tiny touch of the red. And see that green is becoming desaturated. So let's do a more balanced mix now. So I've got the red here. I'm going to add some more of the green. Let's see if we can neutralise it further. Now, my second tip is, when these colours become dark and quite neutralised, it's difficult to see what you've got. So my next tip is to then make a tint of the mix, and simply to make a tint you add white. I'm using titanium white, just add a little bit. Now you can see with that tint we've got quite a nice pinky grey, which is a really useful colour. So let's take some of that Now let's see if we can neutralise it further by adding more of the green. Touch more red. And we're starting to kind of create a soft grey. So let's make a tint of that mix. You see we've got a beautiful, beautiful soft kind of dove grey. So that's been really neutralised now and desaturated. Such a useful colour. And obviously you can go on and on with the tints and create a whole range of these useful soft colours. Third top tip is as well, when you mix in colours, try not to dip your brushes in and out of the water too much. I'm using acrylics here, but all I would do is quick dip and wipe with a rag or kitchen roll, and then you can continue mixing if you do need to clean your brushes, because otherwise it all gets way too watery. What I have been doing with the mixes is trying to keep, you know, roughly a brush per colour. They obviously get contaminated as you mix. Try not to contaminate the white. These slightly get contaminated, but you could see there I was kind of using them to just play around with the balance of the red and the green. So next I'm going to use bismuth yellow and the deep violet. So we're going to knock back the yellow slightly. Now obviously the deep violet is a very, very strong colour to use, so I'm going to use the tiniest touch there. Now can you see already what a difference that makes? It's that beautiful, beautiful mustard yellow, and I use this mix quite a lot in my paintings. I used it an awful lot in Queen of the Midsummer, and I'll just put the picture of it in now so you can see. And honestly, I think this is one of, I always say this, it's hard to have a favourite, but it's one of my favourite colours. It just zings and it's got a depth to it, and when you create a tint, you just get a stunning range of colours. And you can see it's knocked back that bright yellow to create some really, really sophisticated colours. So useful in landscape, portrait, abstract, just really useful. So let's do a bit of balancing now. So we're going to add a touch more purple to this mix. Now we're getting a really lovely neutral. Touch more. I'm using the brush mainly with the yellow to mix though, so that the deep violet doesn't dominate the mix too much. Now let's make a tint. Look how neutralised that's become. We're starting to get this really beautiful warm grey. Touch more. See how strong that deep violet is. Look at that beautiful grey. happy with that actually. I'll create a tint of that so you can really see the colour. Let's do quite a lot of white there. I'm using titanium white. Look at that beautiful grey. So you can see we're really desaturating these very bright, strong colours, creating really sophisticated, subtle, nuanced colours. So for the final pair, we're using the Pyrrole Orange and the Prussian Blue. And we're going to do the same. Let's knock back that really zingy orange first of all. Just a touch, just a touch. Prussian Blue again is very strong. Look already, just a slight touch of that Prussian Blue. And we've got a really deep kind of rusty orange. It's knocked back the brightness. Let's play around with the mix. So we'll just add a touch more blue. And now I'm going to make a tint of that because I don't know where it's going. It's gone really dark, but I can see we're getting a nice neutral colour. Now what's lovely is we will probably get a really beautiful purple lilac colour. Let's see if I'm right. Cross fingers, no pressure. Oh, phew, yes. You get a really beautiful soft purple. And again, this colour often comes up in quite a few of my paintings. And if you add a tint to that, lovely colour. Now, this is where, if you were mixing this on your palette, you could use that colour. You might then want to use this mix here that you've created earlier with the bismuth yellow and the deep violet, because those two placed together, they would really shine. But if we want to neutralise that colour, I'm going to add a touch of the bismuth yellow. So let's see what happens. And this is a mix I do use quite a lot in my work. You see how it's neutralising? It's gorgeous. Gorgeous soft colour. Let's make a tint so we can see where we are. Oh, I'm working out which brush to use. I'm going to add a touch of the Prussian Blue now. You see, I'm going to have to stop in a minute because this video is going to be 3 weeks long. Because this is basically one of the happiest things I think you can do when you're painting. It's just endless possibilities. Look at that beautiful soft grey blue. That colour would be so useful. And again, I'll put some photographs up now of the paintings that I often use this bluey grey in. And this is such a lovely colour that will go with any of these colours. And again, it would tie with any of these if you were using these in your colour palette. I mean, look at these. And along here with the more pinky neutrals. Just work beautifully. So I hope that's helped, and I hope you play around with the colours that you've got and maybe play around with those complementary pairings and just see what surprising colours you can come up with and the range of tints. So I hope that's really helped. and I hope you enjoy your mixing adventures. Well, thank you so much for watching what I think is my first top tips video, and if you've made it this far, you know what's coming up. Also, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I have had a few questions about if I sell my work and if I sell prints, and yes I do. I have got the link to my shop underneath here, and I sell prints of quite, well, most of my work actually, and quite a few of the paintings that I've mentioned in this. And you know, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you like silly stories, and I hope to see you again soon. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed mixing the colours and chatting to you, so quite enjoyed doing this top tips video. Thanks ever so much. Bye. So it's like, it's B&O, please yourself, not B&O. Oh God. Cut. Oh no, cut.